Okay, so here is the fourth and final video that you need to watch for the information you need to get assignment 5 done. On this slide, you can see what we're going to talk about in this video. First is finding trig values, not as ratios, rather as decimals. So these would be problems that you can't do on your unit circle. So it says finding the trig value on a calculator, watch your mode. That's critical. Once again, I can only show you how to change the mode on the Inspire on the computer. So if you're using a scientific, I need you to listen carefully. And when I get back, I will show you guys how to do this. But for every problem, if it's in degrees, you need to have your calculator in degrees. If it's in radians, you need to have your calculator in radians. And remember, the biggest thing you're looking for is if it has a degree symbol, then it's degrees. If it doesn't, it's in radians. So on the yellow calculators that I have, the second button to the right on top, so it's right next to the green second button, there's a mode button. So if you have your own scientific calculator, find whatever the mode is. And then the top row says degree, radians, and then grad, which stands for gradients. We don't use those. So on that line, when you have degrees, you're going to hit enter on degrees, and then second quit, and now your calculator will be in degrees. And when you need to switch back to radians, you would hit that mode button again, go over and click on radians, second quit, and now it would read it. So that's how you do it on the scientific. Sorry, I wasn't able to show you that. Okay, but we will use the graphing calculator to make sure that we can do that. So I'm going to go back here. The first problem we're going to do is in degrees. So I'm going to go over down to settings again, document settings. And you can see I already have it in degrees. So I just double check it, make default, okay. And then when we go to do a calculation, we'll be all set for the first one. Okay, now when I look at sine, I see that there is a degree symbol, but now I'm reminded that this is DMS because it was degrees and minutes. There is no seconds. So this is a good review of how to convert from degrees, minutes, seconds to just degrees. Remember the 32 is already in degrees, so I keep that. But then the 19 minutes, technically to convert it, I would multiply it by 1 degree over 60 minutes because then the minutes cancel. So to do this problem, I would do 32 plus 19 over 60 because that's what I get when I multiply straight across. And that gives me 32.32. So ultimately, in my calculator, I'm going to type in sine of 32.32 degrees. So I go to my calculator, and remember we already switched to degrees. So I'm going to do sine, button, sine of 32.32. I don't need to type the degree symbol because it's there, and I get 0.3. Oops, sorry about that. 535. And so that is my and then if I want to find the tangent of 2 pi over 5, okay, then I would just have to switch my calculator to radians. Again, on this calculator, I have to go back to the home button, down to settings, change document settings, go down to angle measure, change it to radians, and make default. Now this is where it's important that we're using documents and not Scratchpad, because the Scratchpad doesn't necessarily make these changes. So again, we said we were going to do tangent of 2 pi, so you can either use the fraction button, but you don't really need to, but if you do control divide, it does that. 2 times pi. Now, if you go down in the lower left corner, you can see the pi button. That's where that is. 2 pi over 5, enter, and I get 3.078 for my answer for that one. So go ahead and pause the video. You're going to see you get to try some without, or guided practice number 15. Having said that, let's maybe do 15 together first, so that you know how to do the reciprocal ones. Okay, so 15b, c, and d are all reciprocal functions. Let's do 15b together. Again, what I actually would do if cosecant goes with sine, so I actually find sine of 19 degrees first. Now we're back to degrees, so I'm going to move my calculator back to degrees. It is kind of annoying. It's actually quicker on the scientific than it is on this. There's a way where you can just put the degree symbol in, but I always like doing this instead. Okay, so I go there, new document. Oops, sorry about that. New document. No, don't save. Add a calculator, and again, we were doing the sine of 18 degrees, so we're good. I get 0.26. Now here's where I have to be careful though. I need to remember that I found sine of 0.326. But remember, the cosecant is the reciprocal of that. So technically that's 0.326 over 1, so cosecant would be 1 over 0.326. And when I do that, I type 1 divided by 0.326 my calculator, I get about 3.067. So that's how I go about the reciprocal function. So go ahead and do A, C, and D on your own, and then for A, first I had to convert this. I did plus 42 over 60, and so I got of 23.7. That's in degrees, which is what I typed in my calculator, and got 0.439. Should be the answer for that one. For 15C, I did the tangent of pi over 8, so at this point I changed my calculator to radians. Got 0.414. But remember, the cotangent is the reciprocal, so I did 1 divided by 0.414. I got 2.415. And finally, secant I know goes with cosine. Again, the 1.24 there is no degree symbol on, which means I had my calculator in radians. And I got 0.325. And so then I know that the secant is the reciprocal of that. So 1 divided by 0.325. And I got 3.077. Okay, so that's what you should be able to do on your calculator, finding trig values that are not ratios or not on the unit circle. Last but not least, we need to make sure we know how to solve for things in a triangle. And this goes back to using SOHCAHTOA. So using trig functions to solve a right triangle. So if I give you that solving a right triangle, actually means find all 3 sides and all 3 angles. Okay, so if I ask you to solve, that's the biggest thing. If you're solving the whole triangle, you find all 3 sides and all 3 angles. Now, I always like to use a trig function first. So you're ultimately going to have to use a trig function once, meaning SOHCAHTOA, and then you can find the other 2 pieces by using Pythagorean theorem, and that the sum of angles equals 180. So I'm actually going to start with knowing that this is my angle, and I know this side, so this is called the adjacent. So I can either choose to solve for C or A in this case. I'm just going to choose to solve for C. Okay, so I'm using that, which is the hypotenuse. My trig function that uses A and H is cosine. So I take the cosine, 54 degrees, equals adjacent, which is 7, over the hypotenuse, which is C, which is what I'm trying to solve for. Now in this case, to be able to solve for C, it's actually 2 steps of algebra. First, I would multiply both sides by C. I get C times cosine 54 equals 7. And then I would divide both sides by cosine 54 degrees. So in order to solve this, I would type in 7 divided by cosine of 54 degrees into my calculator. And at this point, I'm just going to trust that we kind of know how to type that in. And when I type that in, I get the other leg. So I'm typing it in right now. I'm doing 7 divided by cosine of 54. And I got 11.9. Means that this side is 11.9. Okay, so now we go back to we've been finding a missing side, knowing 2 sides over and over again. We're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which means I'm going to do 7 squared plus a squared equals 11.9 squared. So I'm going to get a equals the square root of 11.9 squared minus 7 squared. And when I type that into my calculator, I got that a is about 9. So now I know all 3 sides. I know 2 of the 3 angles, one of always which is 90 degrees. So to find the third angle, which we haven't really done yet, but is probably the easiest step, all three angles have to add up to 180. You're always going to subtract the 90 degrees. So usually when I find the third angle of a right triangle, I actually start with 90. So I'm going to do 90 minus the 54 degrees that I know, and I am left with 36 degrees for the final angle. When I do solve a triangle, I do like to see all the things labeled within the triangle. So my final answer is actually this triangle with everything labeled. All the other stuff is just my side work. But it's important that not only you know how to find things, but you also know where things go once you're done with them. Okay, so go ahead and pause again. And your last example for this unit or this part of the unit is to do guided practice number 16. So go ahead and do that, pause it, and then check your answer. Okay, so for this one, I'm not going to go through and necessarily show my work. I'm just going to show you what I got. For this side, I got 6.56. For this side, I got 7.55. And the other angle would have been 49 degrees. So hopefully you were able to get those on your own. And now you have all of the information you need to be able to complete all the problems in assignment number 5. So use whatever time is left to get some of that assignment done. Just a reminder that when you come back to class next, you should in theory be done with assignments 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you want to be all caught up. Thanks.